First of all, I'm Darryl Eaton, Director of Product Management for RightScale. And this is in the Foundations course. So I imagine most of you are new to private cloud, or public cloud, or any cloud. Is there anyone who has been using RightScale for a while in the audience? No? Okay. That's probably good. Well, besides you, Siobhan, who works at RightScale. Because a lot of this is going to be more about like the paradigm shifts between non-cloud and cloud. And so if you're already in there, you probably already see a lot of it. But this is definitely geared more towards people who are just starting to come onto the cloud. Back in 1999, I was a system administrator or director of technology for a startup in the Bay Area, and ran the programming team, and I was the only sysadmin. And I remember one night in particular when we were switching to a fatter pipe coming down to our office. And unbeknownst to me, there was a NFS mount from our database in the colo at Exodus back to some machine in the office. And so when the network switched over, something just started happening with the database. And this site had been running for many, many months, totally fine. I could not figure out what was going on. I couldn't get onto the machine. I finally had to call up someone at Exodus and say, can you please go reboot this machine? They call me from the cage. Is it this machine? It has this label? Yep, that's the one. Reboot it. Okay, wait for it to reboot, get back in, try to restore the database, or try to fix the database that's there. It's all corrupted. I got to restore it. And 3 or 4 hours later, I finally get the database back up and running, reconnect everything. This is all manual. And I want to say that I'm glad that I don't have to do that anymore, because what I'm about to walk through is, how being in such a more flexible environment. So what has changed then from that old way? We don't have a data center anymore. We don't have, if you look at our server room, there's a few servers that we have to test out private cloud stuff, but there's not much that we do there. Everything else is done in the cloud. Everything that we use internally is done in the cloud. All of our systems are in the cloud. So there's nothing fixed. There's no fixed capacity. I don't have to worry about getting a cage somewhere. There's no fixed cost. I don't have to worry about asking for budget. A lot of you have heard this already, probably during this conference, and that's why you're here. But there's nothing fixed in the cloud. You want to make everything variable. And I'll go through a bunch of use cases of how this helps. Maybe one particular use case that's in RightScale. So when we do a release, we don't upgrade the current machines that are running. We actually stand up a whole, hundreds of servers with the new release, and make sure that that's all running, run against all automated tests against it. And then when it looks like everything's good, then we take things down, switch over the data, point everything to the new machines, and then it's off and running. And then we trash tons of machines that are just, we don't need them anymore. So that's the kind of flexibility that you can get in the cloud that didn't exist before. You can do this for a variety of things. For if you need to test, you can bring up a whole testing environment and pound away your environment. And that's what we do. We bring up a testing environment to pound away our next release. People who are doing analytics, same thing. Well, use case there. Lily said that it used to take, I think it was 7 weeks to get enough time to get like 40 Linux machines that they can give to one of their scientists, and now they can do it in 7 minutes. And so they just, oh, do you need some capacity? No problem, we have that. And then they give it to you, they spin it up. So let's walk a little bit deeper into that. It's important for a couple different reasons. First of all, whenever you hit that capacity line, you're in big trouble. And in the cloud, you do not have to do that. Here, you just lost customers. And below that, you have a large opportunity cost. You saw one of our customers in the morning presentation, if you went, that said, I have 75% of my servers that are doing nothing 75% of the time. And so that's a lot of money that's just sitting out there that you're wasting. And so you want to make sure that everything is as variable as possible. So in the cloud world, and with a management tool like RightScale, you can make everything variable, and you can do it in an automated way. So if you need more machines, well, it's pretty easy to go in there and just copy them like I did this morning and hit play, and then all of a sudden they're all coming up and booting for you. If you need more database power, we have customers that keep databases in an array, and they just go and they take up the number of databases they want in that array, and we automatically spin up, let's say, 5 more if they wanted 5. And then they go and mark those, in the master database or the master pointer database, saying, okay, here's some new ones, pointing new people here. And they can make everything variable. And so you don't necessarily have to predict demand anymore. You don't have to predict capacity. You just start. What you do have to do is architect for the cloud to take advantage of this. Okay, so another paradigm shift. So I remember also at that same startup, I had to go out and ask for, okay, I need a cage at Exodus. I need this much equipment, which is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I have to convince this CEO to buy this for me, saying that this is what I need. I know it's a lot of your money because it's a startup, but I need this to get the website up and running. And you go through a lot of, forecasting and prediction, and you're also competing against other bigger companies that already have this in place. They take a little bit of their extra capacity and they're like, all right, well, I'll allocate this to you. It's already set up and running. Go for it. So you're kind of competing against these big players with a lot less capital. In the cloud, that doesn't exist. You can have as much capital, as many machines as you want. And so you have startups that are coming out there and saying, we need 50 machines now, and you have them, and you start getting charged by the hour, 11 cents an hour. And so it kind of levels the playing field. And one of the things that we've had the pleasure of watching is a bunch of businesses that have grown up specifically because of this advantage being, the no unfair advantage is now gone. They can come in and they start out, we use Zynga over and over again, but all these social gaming companies live because of this. They can start up with just a game idea, and if it goes crazy, they don't run out of capacity, and it's completely unpredictable, but they scale out, and they're like, okay, we've now have millions of users a day. And they didn't have to go out and ask for a bunch of capital outlay and get everything set up, and it's just all there when they need it. Another paradigm shift. So along those same lines, this is maybe the capital that you have at your disposal. Maybe there's some bigger companies where you do have quite a bit more capital at your disposal, but for most people, they have this little dollar sign. They have to allocate it as best they can. And your buying power is not that big compared to someone like Amazon, who offers or spins up, what is it, the equivalent of Amazon.com when it was a $2.5 billion company every day. They spin this up every day. Imagine the buying power and the operational excellence that it takes to do that. And all of that is, all that cost savings comes down to you. So when you're trying to fight against, that sort of buying power, it's just hard. It's hard to compete. This is probably one of the biggest paradigm shifts that we should talk about. And perhaps in this model, you go and you set up a bunch of servers, you get them all racked, you get them all hooked up together, and you get all the network attached storage going, a bunch of NetApp boxes or whatever you have. Still, what happens often is most of the machines are very specific. You're setting up machines for specific tasks, and sometimes you'll make a redundant copy of that. But you can probably go and point to the machine that's in that data center and say, that's the web server for this site, and turn it off. Well, in the cloud, you don't deal with any of that because you forget about this whole thing right here. All you're dealing with is blueprints. So at the basic level, you're dealing with something like a machine image. So on Amazon, that is an AMI. VMware, it's a VMware machine image. And you're just saying, this is the blueprint of the server that I want it to look like, and I can make copies of it. And if I want to spin up copies of it, I can. So now you are getting out of this level, and you're starting to really think about, okay, well, what do those machines need to do? What does the application need to do? You don't have to worry about, any of just getting the infrastructure up and running. Spoke about this a little bit already, but the worst thing that anyone can imagine is that you just have a ton of idle capacity sitting around in your local data centers that's not being used. It's that you have a hard time allocating towards someone who walks in the door and says, I need this specific application. You're like, okay, well, that'll take me X weeks, and we'll get it up for you, and in the meantime, a lot of that money, that fixed cost that went in there, is being wasted. So you don't have to do that anymore. You just press start when you need it. So if you have a big analytics job, you just press start when you need it. And one key thing to remember here is, okay, so I can get 100 servers for $100 or all at once, or I can get one server for 100 hours for $100. I mean, you can flex a lot of the variables now. So you don't have to say, oh, I only have access to 5 servers, therefore it's going to take me, X hours to punch through this job. You can say, well, maybe how many servers could I get to get this down to an hour? Well, you can do that now. You can say, okay, I need 20 servers. And then you spin up those 20 servers and you're done in an hour. So everything's flexible. There's no idle capacity. Everything is on demand. And applications that fit with the cloud take advantage of this. Applications that fit best with the cloud. What is cloud computing management? So RightScale sits on top of the infrastructure layer. And where traditional IaaS or maybe whereas traditional private, IaaS or private cloud infrastructure stops at the virtual machine, you get to this virtual machine, and then the flexibility kind of stops there. Cloud management keeps going deeper. So let's go into that. So this is a virtual machine. If you want a machine, you bake it. You get it all set up just right, and then you bake it. And then you can use it over and over and over again. And the big problem with this is when you need to fix one little bug, well, now you have to bake the whole thing again. And to roll it out is really difficult. So you saw this image this morning with Michael, but with management, you keep playlists, you keep run lists. You don't bake anything into the image. So why is this valuable? Let me give you an example of something that I've done internally. So I set up a bunch of analytics templates. One of them was from JasperSoft, one of our partners, for use internally. And the way that I did was I took their template, and then I just added a couple scripts to the end that just specified or made it specific to RightScale. And I can spin this up over and over again, and it works very well. Now JasperSoft comes out with an update. They come out with from 3.5 to 3.7.1. Well, I want that update. I don't have to go and get a new image, reinstall all my software. All I do is I go into the RightScale management platform and I click on a bunch of little green buttons, and it updates my template with all the new stuff that JasperSoft's shipped. And I didn't have to change anything that was RightScale specific, and I spin it up again and I have the new version of JasperSoft with all my stuff there. So this is the beauty of the run list model versus the image model. And you see this with other tools too. Other management tools are starting to get into this. But our server templates specifically speak to this. It says use a base OS, base image, install everything on top. That way you can just fix one bug if you need to and roll it out across your infrastructure. Or if you're using one of our partner templates or one of RightScale's templates, when we fix any bugs or we roll out new features, you just incorporate those into your existing templates, and you can roll it out to your current machines that are running. So that's one big difference between the cloud and management. Another one, which speaks along the same lines, is that you can so easily copy anything that's in the management dashboard. So you can copy a server, like I did this morning in the presentation, where I just copied a WordPress server, and you can make a minor tweak. We have one of our customers uses this to, they basically spin up a deployment for each of their customers, and then they have all the variable information like the customer's name and website address, and so whenever they need a new environment, they click clone on the deployment, which copies all the servers and the whole deployment, puts it over here. And then all they do is they spin that up and they put in all the variable information for their new customer. So it's like a giant photocopy machine for your infrastructure, which you've never had before. I mean, imagine going back to this type of thing and just photocopying that, in 5 minutes. It's just not possible. So that opens up a whole new world of sort of these like SaaS on-demand companies that we're seeing, where they create their little SaaS box for their customers. And they can just replicate it really easy when a new customer comes on. This is what I wanted to revisit in the management side. So when something dies or gets messed up in cloud management in the cloud, you don't fix the server. And this is one thing that people kind of, when I first say this, they're like, what do you mean by that? You don't fix the server. You actually trash it. You trust your blueprint. You fix the blueprint. So we have customers that are just militant about their inside IT organization that uses RightScale, like never touch a server, ever. You can go in there to see what happens, but then when you put the fix in, you might have a couple command lines that you had to do to fix it. You go and you immediately paste that into the template. So the next time that server launches, it gets that fix. So you're always fixing the blueprints, not fixing the servers. When something happens to a database, you don't go in there and try to figure out what's going on with it. You spin up a new one, and if you want to, you can sequester it and figure it out, but most of the time you'll just throw it away. And we do this all the time internally. We have customers that do this all the time too. If you can live at this level, then all of a sudden you are truly programming infrastructure. And it's part of your application, not so much something that you have to make sure is running. So in RightScale, our blueprint is what we call a server template. And what that is it's a collection of two things. What kind of resources am I going to demand of the cloud? So for example, our database templates usually demand larger instances because we expect people are going to be using that, or they demand that they'll have volumes attached, EBS volumes attached, so we can take advantage of striped volumes for speed. So it says, what do I need from the cloud? It also says, what am I going to configure? So you can have a series of bash scripts or PowerShell scripts if you're on Windows, or other different types of languages that we support, which is, okay, first I'm going to install monitoring, next I'm going to install MySQL, then I'm going to install PHP, then I'll install Apache, and I'm going to configure it this way, and I'm going to change these items in the Apache conf, and you get it all to the point where, when it spins up, it's the exact server that you want it to be every time it spins up. So that's what I mean by blueprint. The question was, I understand throwing away servers like a proxy or an app server, but if it's a database and you throw it away, you might lose data. So some templates that we offer, like our Postgres or MySQL templates, can be configured in a master-slave paradigm. So you have that high availability where, for example, if you have the master-slave up and running in the whole app tier, we actually have a button on the slave which says promote to master. And we take care of all the dirty work of going out to the app servers and repointing it to the slave. But then, yeah, you do throw away the master. It's gone. So you don't lose data in that respect, but you still are throwing away the server. But you do have to architect it for the database if you want to do that. Yeah. And then, of course, one thing on the management level is if you are working in the cloud, you are on the cloud. And we've had many customers that come to RightScale who say, okay, I figured it out in the cloud, and now I'm thinking maybe I need another cloud, and I'm going to have to re-architect everything that I've done to do that. So that's where someone like a management layer comes in, like we do. So another thing about the server templates is that we do all the dirty work of abstracting away the cloud from you. So you define your server template once, and then you can run it in many places. For example, this morning I showed a demo where I was running the same database server template on both Rackspace and Amazon, and it is the same exact template. When you look underneath the template, we have what's called a multi-cloud image, and it says, okay, on this cloud I want that image, on this cloud I want that image. And then we do all the work of making those images look exactly the same, put them in the right place, and making it so when you spin up that template, it says, okay, I'm on the Rackspace cloud, I'm going to use the Rackspace image. I'm on the Amazon East cloud, I'm going to use this image in the Amazon East region. I'm in the Amazon West cloud, I'm going to use this image in the West region. And so you can take that template and get yourself off of the specifics of the regions or the clouds. And given some of the stuff that people have been looking into lately in terms of disaster recovery, this is the feature that we've seen sort of tick up the most in recent times. Like, okay, I didn't quite get that before, but now I'm going to start trying to architect so that I can move around between regions if need be. So one thing that I would say is when you're going to go and start this whole adventure of coming onto the cloud, and it's a very fun adventure, I assure you, Don't do it alone. Don't go grasping in the desert, trying to figure this out by yourself, because people have, already gotten the road rash. We're 4 years in now. There's a lot of road rash out there. There's a lot of learnings. We have a wealth of knowledge that's just on RightScale's support site about all the different clouds and what's possible. And we have people who, besides our products, we have professional services products. You don't have to use RightScale. You can just call up and say, hi, I need some consulting help. I need to talk about the cloud. And we can help you. And we often see a huge difference in the amount of time that it takes. I'm going to pull up another slide here. For someone to get set up on the cloud when they just take the time and say, okay, someone else has done this before, I'm going to do this the right way. This was a study that we had commissioned with the FactPoint group and said, okay, we think we save time, but how much time do we save and when? And so they worked with a few of our customers and compared just going against the base cloud and using RightScale, and measured the times it took to set up the initial deployment as well as the ongoing maintenance. And so we found that the biggest gains, the biggest efficiency gains, were the initial deployments. So people use a lot of our off-the-shelf templates. We have a lot of templates in our library, in our marketplace, where you can go out and just say, I need a MySQL template, I need a Postgres template, I need a Microsoft SQL Server template, I need Apache, I need Tomcat. We have a lot of these templates already. So it's a huge, huge efficiency gain on just setting up something that's already there, customizing it for your environment. The ongoing efficiency gains come around, things like I don't need to rebake an AMI. I can just change one little line of code and then respin up a new server and push that to all my machines. So while that wasn't as big as the initial deployment, it was still huge in terms of the regular maintenance cycles that people had to deal with. So that's available on the white papers. Don't take my word for it, but go on yourself. But we see our biggest competitors right now is do-it-yourself. It's people who are coming in the cloud, and there's a lot of tools out there. It's hard to know which one to use, and you can get something up and running by yourself, and then you start to hit the issues that everyone hits, and then they start to look for someone like RightScale. You either need to get into another cloud or another region, or I don't have any user management. I have users that are all over the place now. I don't know what they're doing. So we've solved all those issues for you, and I can guarantee you that the amount of money and people that are behind this, it would take you a lot to rebuild it. So RightScale, we do all this work on behalf for you. So we actually, when you say, I want to launch a server, a WordPress server, we say, okay, it looks like you want it based on this AMI and in this region. We go out and make all the API calls against Amazon and say, all right, launch an instance here, this type, this size, this availability zone, this AMI, and then we kind of pull, okay, it looks like it's ready, all right, we're going to start installing our stuff. So we abstract that API away. But at the same time, we do offer our own API if you want to do multi-cloud operations. I would say there's two routes to trying to get on the cloud. One is take what you think is most applicable. So things like crunching data is a very good application fit to the cloud. And start figuring out how to architect that into the cloud. How do you do that? Start playing with that. Or you can take the road of what's most painful? What do I hate dealing with? In many cases, the cloud has a solution there, where the things that are keeping you from the parties at night, we've figured out. So if there's something that's just so painful in your organization you can't take it anymore, ask someone who has been in the cloud. Okay, I have this issue. I want to get around it. What's out there? And chances are there is something out there to deal with that pain.